So before I jump into today's video, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction of my co-hosts, because it seems that invariably, anytime I'm working on a video, you're going to hear one of these guys. So I'll give you a quick introduction and an explanation of the noises that you will quite often hear. I think many of you know what I'm talking about already. So going left to right. First of all, down the front here, the little blondie, that is Amira. She's the one that you will hear snoring very loudly quite often in my videos. Behind her is the pup, Mouse. He's not so much of a snorer as yet, maybe when he gets bigger. Mostly from him, you will hear him playing with his toys. He's got a favourite fish that makes a lot of noise, and he's also quite amusingly got a mouse toy that makes a lot of noise. So you may hear him throwing them around the place. Occasionally, you may hear the craziness of two puppies playing, because his best friend is another little chihuahua who is a week older than him by the name of Jasper. I'm not going to share the photo because he's not my dog, but he is my sister's dog, and periodically I babysit him, and him and Mouse just go crazy playing together. So you will periodically hear puppy noises in the background, in which case you will know that Jasper is here and the boys are playing. Now on the right side of the screen is my old girl Tarka. She's a Kelpie Labrador cross. You won't hear a great deal of her. You may hear her snoring occasionally, but her snoring is a far more mellow snoring than Amira's. So you may hear just a more quiet snoring. That's Tarka. She loves her dog biscuits, so you may hear munching in the background at some point in time. That's Tarka. You may also hear scrabbling sounds in the background. That's Tarka walking along the floor. I've got wooden floors, and somehow Tarka just doesn't know how to walk quietly. Now, the other one that you may occasionally hear, and this is kind of more of a bonus one, is a bird who occasionally turns up and makes alarm clock noises. So, no, I can't turn my alarm off when it goes off because it's not my alarm. Thanks to a tip from one of my subscribers, I had a bit of a look around and realised that it's actually a minor bird, which are noisy sods and very good at mimicking sounds. So with those introductions out of the way and the explanation of all the noises that you're going to hear, let's also get into the disclaimer that it seems I have to do in order to try and avoid being demonetized. I'm a true crime channel. My videos are for educational purposes and for adults only. I don't do clickbait. I don't do live streams. My videos are pre-recorded videos where I talk about current cases. In this video, I'm talking about the Jennifer Soto case. For anyone who may have actually not heard of it, Jennifer Soto was a 13-year-old girl who went missing only a few days after her birthday in 2024. It was later discovered that her mother's ex-boyfriend was responsible. And now he's locked up, facing 2 trials, one because of images found on his phone, and one for Maddie's death. Now, before we continue with this video, huge shout out to all the new subscribers. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for subscribing. If you have not subscribed to my channel and you are a regular listener, please do so. That is the best way that you can support my channel. Also, leaving comments below is also a great way of supporting my channel. The things that get my videos out into the algorithm and get them being recommended to more viewers by YouTube are the number of comments, the number of likes, and of course, if I gain subscriptions on a video, that also boosts it in the algorithm. So I will be eternally grateful for any new subscribers, all comments, and all people hitting the like button. Now, this is the third, part 3 of my analysis of the Jen Soto video interview. It's a long interview, that's for sure. I think by now we're all familiar enough with the case that if you've missed part 1 and 2 of this, then you can always go and watch them after you've watched this one. I don't think you'll be missing out on anything if you watch them out of order. So with yesterday's video, I left off at the point where we're just about to see Detective O'Malley serve Jennifer her answers on a plate. He has asked her about the sleeping arrangements, and she's come out with the "I have a rule," or for the longest time, "I had a rule," which of course is ridiculous, because nobody has a rule that their 12-year-old child can't go and sleep with a 37-year-old man unless they have a reason to do so. And to say she's had it for the longest time suggests this has been going on for a very long time. So let's pick up where we left off.
I'm sorry, repeat the question then.
So I guess when you said like you had a rule, like obviously we know now they've slept in the same bedroom together and everything else. I'm sure you're questioning a lot of things that like you haven't been told or that are going on. The thought process of them sleeping in the same bedroom caused you to say that you had a rule for the longest time where they couldn't.
Yeah.
I have a son. He's a lot younger than her. He's 4. But I guess if I was dating somebody or had somebody over, I would never establish, and this is just me, a rule. He can't sleep in the bed with her, or she's not going to be. It wouldn't even be a thought process for me. So that's why I asked, because I wouldn't think of it even as an option.
Yeah.
So when you say you had a rule, I guess I'm asking what prompted the rule.
Sleepovers before. Yeah. Like, you want to watch movies and eat snacks? Can we do that? I'm like, no. We can all watch movies down here together. We can all sleep down here together.
I hate that she puts it back on Maddie every time. You never hear her suggesting that it was Stefan's idea. Although, like I said in yesterday's video, there was a slip-up which essentially indicated that it actually was Stefan's idea. When you hear her saying that the question was, "Oh, want to go up and watch a movie and eat snacks," my thoughts there are that is probably how he originally started convincing Maddie to go upstairs and watch movies with him. The promise of treats. I mean, she can try and deny it, but Jen is essentially admitting that these sleepovers have been happening for years. So, if you tell an 8-year-old child, "Hey, I've got your favourite treats, do you want to come upstairs and we'll have a little midnight feast and watch some movies, and you can choose the movie and you can have as many of these treats as you like," most 8-year-olds are going to accept that. When you look at the foods that Jen described as being what Maddie had at her party, that gives me the impression that Yolanda was the sort of grandmother who made sure that Maddie had healthy food. Jen is such a narcissist. I could imagine her being the sort of mother that if she did buy special treats, she probably hid them away for herself and ate them while Maddie was at school. So it would have been an easy way for him to get her into the habit of having little sleepovers with him. I'm not saying that's definitely what was happening, but certainly from what Jen's saying here, it sounds like it well and truly could have been.
Up until June, together all the time. So we were always, she would sleep in the middle, I would sleep on this side, he would sleep on the other side. It wasn't until June that he got his own bedroom and I sent him upstairs. That's where the requests for sleepover started.
Okay.
And I kept telling her no. I'm not comfortable with that.
Notice how much difficulty she's having there with actually saying that the sleepovers only started when he moved upstairs, and the whole, that's when the requests started happening. Not only is she frequently pausing, but she's also repeating words. It's really hard for her to spit those words out that, well, it never happened until after he moved upstairs. Which to me says that's an outright lie. I've said this so many times on my channel. The brain does not like to lie, and it gives you away. In this instance, her brain is preventing her from getting those words out because it's an outright lie. If she was being truthful here, and this was a real situation that, the sleepovers only began after I made him move upstairs. If she was being truthful, it would flow. You wouldn't get these repeated words, you wouldn't get these pauses. But you do get that. And then she has to overemphasize I said no. I think I put a few more extra no's in there, but you know what I mean. She's trying to overemphasize how much she objects to it, to make it look like I really didn't want it to happen, but they forced my hand. She is just trying to be a little bit too convincing there. And we know she has admitted so many times that it's crowded when the three of them sleep in the bed together. So we know that she would jump at any chance to get them out of her bed. And I suspect based on how much trouble she had with saying that all this only started after he moved upstairs, I suspect that it was probably up to Jen to find the new roommate to go in that room upstairs. Because she does mention at one point in time, in 2020 Juan decided to go on the road and asked me to take over looking after the townhouse. So to me that suggests she is the one responsible for getting roommates in, for choosing roommates, for advertising to get roommates. That room has been empty for a while, and I suspect that it was intentionally empty. Even before she sent Stefan upstairs, I think it was kept empty so that she could send Stefan upstairs and get a good night's sleep without having to share her bed with two other people. How do we know that? Well, I think we can accept that they probably were broken up based on what the flatmates were saying. But how do we know that it just didn't become a thing where she was already sending Maddie upstairs with Stefan frequently and decided, hey, why don't I just make it official and then I can charge Chris rent? Although, that said, Chris does specifically say that he was making the rent payments to Juan. That doesn't necessarily mean that he was. It could just mean that he believed he was. But it would be interesting to know from Chris if those payments were something that he had arranged between him and Juan, and he knew that he was making payments into an account with Juan's name on it, or if there was some sort of cash arrangement and the money was supposedly being given to Juan, but it wasn't.
But eventually, at some point, like we really want to watch. I forgot what movie it was. They really wanted to watch something, and I was really tired. And I said, okay, fine, go ahead, but this can't happen often. And yeah, I allowed her to go upstairs and sleep with him. But honestly, I think I can count on one hand how many times that's happened, and it hasn't been many times that I've allowed her to have a slumber party with him, to be alone in a bed with him.
Jen's always tired or always sleeping. Now, how can you be tired when you're not even working? Because she's claiming this occurred from after she sent Stefan upstairs. And according to her, the last time she worked was when she was doing that substitute teacher stuff, which sounds like it was before then. And then she only worked for like a week or so before Maddie went missing. But she was tired. Happy to send your daughter upstairs to watch a movie. Was this a school night, Jen? Did it concern you about how much sleep your daughter was getting? She just seems to have no concept of reality. But I think also it is a classic Jen excuse. It's probably something that she has used throughout her life to get out of doing things as well. Not just to explain away mistakes, but, oh, I can't do that, I'm really tired, can you do it for me instead? We've seen how much her family do everything for her. This is someone who has spent their lifetime acting incompetent. And claiming you are tired is one of the ways that you act incompetent. And of course, then we get the really, really quiet Jen kicking in. You can barely hear her say, I allowed her to go upstairs and sleep with him. That's undeniable. She did allow Maddie and Stefan to go upstairs and sleep together. I don't like the way she words it. Makes it sound like it was all Maddie's thing. Maddie wanted to do this, so I allowed her to go upstairs and sleep with him. It is once again absolving Stefan of any responsibility. This is all about Maddie, not Stefan. But the fact that she said it so quietly that you could barely hear it shows that she knows she was doing the wrong thing here. And not just because a sleepover is a bad thing. She does switch between sleepover and sleep with him, meaning that she is recognising the fact that this so-called sleepover basically is them sleeping together. It's not some little kiddie slumber party. We get from her again, but honestly, I think I can count on one hand how many times I've allowed that to happen. So, first of all, we get the good old persuasive, but honestly. Believe me, I'm telling you right now that I'm honest. Which, of course, is always a red flag. And she doesn't say she can count on one hand, she says she thinks she can count on one hand. Which to me says it's definitely been way more than that. But right through this whole thing, it's all about her sleeping with him. It's not about Stefan, it's about Maddie. This is all essentially making Stefan the passive person in this, Maddie is the one who is in control, according to Jen. She allowed her to go and sleep with him, not allowed them to go upstairs and sleep together, or allowed him to have Maddie go upstairs and sleep with him. But it's all about blaming Maddie. But you can tell too that she's now trying to back down a little bit because of the way Detective O'Malley confronted her over it. And that's why we are getting that really, really quiet speech again. Because if you remember, the first time Jen actually mentioned the three of them sleeping together, or even just mentioned Maddie and Stefan going upstairs to sleep together, she said it very matter of fact, like it was just a normal thing, which I would imagine actually was a very normal thing.
I'm usually around all the time. I Up until 2 weeks ago, I was pretty much at home all the time living on disability. Uh, if I wasn't at home, just, I was substitute teaching, but I was substitute teaching primarily at her school or at the school close by, but I'd make sure I'd get out around the same time and I'd get out in time to pick her up and take her. So she was with me pretty much all the time when she wasn't at school.
So now she's trying to dial things back. I'm the responsible parent. She was with me pretty much all the time. And she's doing her best to push that notion. She actually says pretty much all the time, twice. She wants to make sure the detectives think that she doesn't leave Maddie alone with Stefan. And she's going to emphasise it by saying she's there pretty much all the time. But when you break that down, pretty much all the time isn't saying that she is there all the time. Pretty much is sort of like, well, sometimes I'm there. Pretty much is not a positive in terms of I'm certainly there all the time. That's 100% certainty. I'm definitely there all the time. Pretty much is a bit wishy-washy. That means, well, if I wasn't there that time, you can't nail me on it because I said only pretty much all the time. Meaning that I'm not really there all the time, but sometimes I'm there. And she has to emphasise that. She says it twice. Which means that she's trying to sell it to them that she's there all the time. But she misses every time because she can't quite spit it out in a way that actually shows that she truly was there all the time. Now, she does say a few times that she has frequent medical appointments, which to me suggests that are those times when Maddie is left alone with Stefan. She never really says about that. Are those medical appointments in the afternoon after Maddie's gotten home from school, or are they through the day when Maddie is at school? But also pretty much they're pretty much all the time could also be her basically trying to evade pointing out that she's probably asleep in her room while they are elsewhere in the house. And that's her version of pretty much all the time. Either way, she is definitely being evasive. And to me that says that there were frequent occurrences when Maddie and Stefan were together unsupervised. And I think we know that based on the number of images that he is being charged over. Because many of those images were in Maddie's little makeshift room. Whatever the story is here, Jen is definitely not giving detectives the full story.
So yeah, after
When he's not there, where does she sleep?
with me.
She never sleeps in her room?
No, always
Okay.
with me.
Quickly, do you know, and you may hate the question, but do you have any idea? We currently have upwards, probably 200 people working on finding. Right, the Orange County Sheriff's Office is involved, the Kissimmee Police Department's involved, St. Cloud Police Department, Osceola County Sheriff's Office, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FBI. Yes, under suspicious circumstances. So anybody who is somebody is involved.
Yeah.
So regardless of the circumstances, those people don't get to go home. Those people don't get to go back to their families. Those people don't get to live their lives and go back to their primary jobs. I know the sheriff has probably expressed to you that's his #1 priority. I'm sure the Kissimmee Police Department's expressed that to you, our detectives. This isn't something that's going to stop or go away.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody who knows something, anybody who may know something, will be brought into a room, will be talked to, whether they're guilty, whether they're innocent. Because our #1 priority, our jobs have kind of stopped on any other things we have going on until that's fine, because that's the most important thing anybody has going on right now. But with that, a lot of people are going to feel that whatever happened, I can tell you, and I know detectives have expressed to you that the thought process at this point is this is a homicide investigation.
Yeah.
Based on the evidence I've seen, based on the videos I've seen, I do believe. With that being said, and the reason I tell you that, not to be an asshole, is because the thought process with us leads it in a different investigation, a different way. Meaning, whatever has already happened, right? We cannot change what happened most likely on Monday. We cannot change the fact that I believe Stephanie, right? All we can do now is find her as quickly as possible. On the 2% chance we're wrong and that she is alive, that's phenomenal, right? That's the best thing that could happen. On the chance that we are 100% correct and she has passed away, finding her now versus later will bring closure to your family, will bring closer to everybody, regardless of how it happened or why it happened. Meaning, if you have an inclination, if you know where she's at, if his father knows, that doesn't mean those people get held accountable for what he did. It doesn't mean those people get held accountable for knowing what he did. It means we close out the investigation and appearance. You know what I mean? So a lot of times we go into rooms like this and we ask people questions. We say, hey, do you know what happened? Do you know what happened? And there's this fear of what happened already happened. I can't change that, so I'm not going to insert myself with knowledge because it's going to make me look bad. Regardless, at this point, right? He victimized her. He ruined her entire life from childhood until now. I think that there's probably some sense of guilt. And my fear is that sense of guilt is causing you to not want to assist in the location of her, not because you're a bad person, but because there's that sense of guilt that what was happening under your roof, and now, by her being found, brings that all to your plate, and it doesn't.
Oh no. If I knew anything, I would so tell you. I want to even if she's dead because you guys tell me your suspicions, but I'm not going to believe it until I have her body.
Now, I did mention in, I think, the first video that this video is out of sync. And I was reluctant to do more magnified images because of it being out of sync. But there's things happening here that are important. So even though it isn't quite in alignment, I thought it was worth looking at. Now, there's a lot going on here. And I'll come back to talking about the choice of words from the detective in a minute. Because I want to talk about Jen's body language first. And the biggest thing here is throughout this entire speech from Detective O'Malley, Jen is sitting on her hands. Her hands are hidden. Why is that significant? Basically, when it comes to reading body language, and I'm not a body language expert, but this is one of those things that is easy to pick up. When someone is hiding their hands, it indicates dishonesty. It indicates they are disingenuous, they are hiding something. Open palms often will signify honesty, depending on the location. If they are raised, probably yes. If they are lower down, possibly, yeah, okay, could just be a manipulation tactic. I will come back to that on another time because we don't see any of that from Jen. What we are seeing here is she is sitting on her hands. Not only a lot of the time through this interview she has her hands clasped or closed or tucked between her legs, but now when he's really getting into the nitty-gritty of it, she's got them tucked under her legs. She's hiding something. Now, in terms of what we see in her face and body language, there are times when we see the brows scrunch up, but there's no tears when we get this little pathetic Jen voice, this "I'm so sad" little Jen voice. We also see a few instances where her breathing increases and instances where she's having trouble swallowing. What he's putting on her here is causing anxiety for her. Why is it causing anxiety? First of all, he gives her a really, really long list of the number of people that are working the case. You can tell from the tone of his voice, even before he gets to the point of saying, these are all people who can't go home until we find Maddie. You can tell from the tone of his voice that he is signalling to Jen, there's a lot of people looking at this case. You're not going to just walk away. And you can see that she is reacting to that. She is getting the increased breathing, the swallowing problems. And one thing I've noticed from Jen, which seems to be one of her things that we can almost rely upon, is when there's something that she knows that, how do I say it, when she's being deceptive, when if she gave an answer she would have to lie because otherwise it would look bad for her, she purses her lips. It is a classic sign of deception, and Jen does it, and she does it at times which fit with deception. So when he says to her, I do believe it's a homicide, she purses her lips and her brows furrow. Now, were it not for the pursed lips, then I would think, okay, the furrowed brow, that's distress. But I would actually expect to see her mouth come open. She does display a little bit of emotion here when he says, I believe it's homicide. But I don't think it's emotion from Maddie because, like I said, you've got the pursed lips. And it's gone in a flash. So she doesn't progress to being in tears, which definitely says to me that she's not really in that much distress over Maddie. And then when he says to her that he believes that Stefan unalived Maddie, we don't see a reaction at all. There's no distress, no shock, nothing, which is not the normal reaction that you would expect from a parent. This is nothing new to her. Because were this something new to her, she would not be able to avoid having a reaction. The body doesn't lie. The fact that she just sat there calmly and did not react says she knew that before he told her that. Right here, this clip is gold, because this shows Jen is guilty. What she is guilty of, I don't know, but she is not acting like an innocent person. She's not acting like a parent who didn't know that her on-again, off-again partner had unalived her child. She's not acting like a parent should. Now, one thing I noticed that he did, which I thought was skillful, when he's talking about the needing to find Maddie, etc., he said about bringing closure to your family. Not bringing closure to you, to your family. He's got her pegged. He knows that probably for her, it's probably more convenient not to find Maddie, because otherwise that helps incriminate Stefan. But he knows that she has got that big family, and I think we can say that no matter what sort of dysfunctional relationship there is, there does seem to be some closeness between her and Stephanie at the very least. And we know there was that relationship between Juan and Maddie. So what he's essentially doing here is appealing to her sense of decency. He's not going to say about bringing closure for her, because he knows that that's not going to inspire her, that's not going to motivate her to give answers. But he is going to try and appeal to her to give closure to her family. The people who are genuinely affected by this. Now, this is only part of what I've seen here. He also, and I'm probably saying this out of order because I've got so much scribble all over my page. I didn't want to turn the page because otherwise it just gets messy, so I've just scribbled up and down the page everywhere. When he said to her that Stefan had victimised her and ruined her entire life, what does Jen do? Jen nods. That's all. There is no emotional reaction, nothing. She just nods acknowledgement. Again, this is not the right reaction. You tell a mother this thing, they should just burst into tears. They should become an emotional wreck, but not Jen. She just, facial expression doesn't change at all. She just nods. And then when he says to her, "Do you know what happened?" we get the pursed lips again. And she says, "If I knew anything, I would tell you." Seems like she is over-objecting there. It seems like a given that if you knew anything, you would tell him. You don't need to verbalise that. She is trying to be overly persuasive, which to me, again, indicates that she's being deceptive. Now, the final thing in all this, which was a huge red flag for me again, he said to her about her having a sense of guilt. And you actually see the face scrunch up and you get this involuntary sob. Again, the body doesn't lie. There's leakage there. It's almost a sense of relief to be told, I know you feel a sense of guilt over this. I suspect, based on her reaction, that probably she does actually feel a sense of guilt. And I think we can probably presume that, based on the way she's changed her story and the way her story basically puts everything on Maddie. Jen is just this outside observer who was forced to go along with these things. So in her narrative, she makes it sound like she's completely innocent. But we know that's not the case. So when he says there's this, or calls her out about having a sense of guilt, we do get that reaction. This involuntary action that she can't hide. Yes, she does have a sense of guilt.
So there are things, and the reason I say these things, and again, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but the reason I say these things is there's been a lot of things you've said, and a lot of things I've kind of researched between the Fox 35 story, between your initial statement to the police. A lot of things have changed. The initial statement to the police was you watched her get dressed, you watched her leave, you knew exactly what she was wearing.
Can I tell you
Absolutely.
my thought process on that, or where I came from with that?
How classic is that? She's pulls up that little bit of paper towel, but she's not actually even getting it remotely close to her eyes. She's wiping her cheeks and then around her mouth. She's trying to give the impression that she's crying and she's wiping away tears. But I think at the same time, she's in a fight or flight reaction. She doesn't want to take her eyes off that detective because she's reading her cues from him. So she can't actually shove that paper towel up in her face because that would stop her from actually being able to read his body language. Meanwhile, what's going on with her body language? As you can see, I've put a screenshot up because I zoomed in on the stuff with the paper towel so you didn't get to see her cross her legs. But as soon as he started nailing her for all her inconsistencies, a lot of things have changed. First of all, she gets the leg jiggle going. Where have we seen that before? Well, we had that funny shuffling, jiggling thing when they brought up about Maddie's laptop being able to be traced, and the moment Jen hears that it could be traced, she gets this nervous jiggling going on. Well, here he's confronting her about the lies and inconsistencies. Suddenly the legs start to jiggle, and then she actually draws her feet back towards her like she's trying to condense her body. She's trying to get away from these detectives and trying to close in even more. She's closing up even more. But then she obviously has this bright idea of, I'll pretend I'm crying, I'll get this paper towel. And she gets the paper towel, fusses around on her face, and then crosses the leg. That is closing off more when someone crosses their leg like that. It is far less open than sitting there, legs side by side. So she is closing herself off to him even more. Everything about her body language here says he's hit the nail on the head. He's basically nailed her up the wall. You've lied. We know you've lied. And Jen doesn't know where to go with this.
I was handed this form, and I'm like, where do I start? What do I write? And somebody said, tell them what you saw. And so I started with I saw. And then I wrote out what I wrote out. But it wasn't until later I was like, wait, I didn't see her. I assumed that I saw her. I assumed that I heard her. But I didn't. In reality, I didn't see her. I only saw him. And I heard something in the kitchen, but I don't know who that was.
Okay, so we all know by now that when Jen sighs and pauses before she starts talking, that we probably shouldn't pay much attention to what she's going to say because it's going to be a lie. And she starts off pretty badly. She's handed this bit of paper and she can't think what to write. Well, hello, your daughter is missing. So how about starting with, my 13-year-old daughter is missing. The last time I saw her was this time. She supposedly was dropped off at school. It shouldn't be something that you have to think about what to write. And if someone said, write down what you saw, well, your reaction would be, but I didn't really see anything. You would be seeking clarification, not just going, well, I assumed that I saw and heard these things. If you saw nothing, then you're not going to start by writing, I saw this. If your child is missing, you don't have mental space for assumptions. What do I mean by that? You are going to be replaying everything in your head from the last time you saw your child up until the moment when you realise your child is missing. You are going to be going through those memories over and over again. Meaning that there is a damn good chance that you're actually going to know what your child was wearing on that Sunday night, even though Jen apparently didn't. You're also going to realise that, based on your narrative, that actually your child never came in to your bedroom that morning and used the bathroom. Never came in and brushed her hair or brush her teeth or put her makeup on or anything like that. This interview was the 1st of March. She's had several days to try and figure this out in her head. And that's what a normal parent would be doing if they didn't know what had happened to their child. They would be replaying every single minuscule detail. Not only that, every time they spoke to detectives, you would probably hear, I remembered something else. And they would be adding little details to the information they are giving detectives. Not simply repeating the exact same narrative every time without any changes. It's not how your brain works. Her brain should have been consumed with thoughts of her child over the past 4 days. When she wrote the statement about what happened, where was Maddie, her brain should have been consumed with actually what she knew, what she could remember. And actually having to write it down should have prompted additional memories, which apparently it didn't. So when she says, I assumed these things, we all know that that is complete and utter BS.
which we've talked about today. But I guess there's other concerns, right? You are nervous. The police have showed you their hand. They said, Stefan, we want your phone. Stefan, we want to talk to you. We are going to lock down your residence. You can't go back inside. Me, I don't care if it's the love of my life sitting next to me. I don't care if it's maternal grandma. If the police come and take my mom's phone and my son's disappearance, I'm not going to offer my mom a lawyer. That's nuts to me. That to me shows you prioritizing Stefan. Because at that point, you became more worried about him being falsely accused than any. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Whether or not that's what you felt, does that make sense? People having lawyers is their constitutional right. That is a thing that everybody is afforded. But for somebody who's going through what you are going through, to offer him a lawyer leads me to believe that there may have been a conversation, there may have been knowledge, or there may have been some inclination that you had, whether it be his involvement, her location, or something to where in your mind there's guilt.
I promise you,
Because you offering him a lawyer is very weird.
So at this point in time, he's basically accusing her of prioritising Stefan, putting Stefan over Maddie. What are we seeing here? Well, there's no anger from Jen. If your child was missing and someone said that you cared more about your ex-partner than your missing child, would you just sit there calmly? Because most parents would lose their shiz. How dare you accuse me of this? My priority is finding my child. Although it would be hard to actually make that objection when the detective is pointing out that you prioritised your ex-partner by worrying about getting him a lawyer. What else is she doing here? She uncrosses her legs, but she does that to angle her body away from the detective. It's subtle, but you can see it. You can see the knees go off to the side, and you'll see that when we go back it's still angled away. She's now trying to back out of this thing. She's far less open with him. She's angling away. She doesn't want to engage in this conversation anymore. And then the big tell for me is that she starts saying, I promise you. And then even before he butts in, she stops. Whatever it was that she was going to say, she couldn't say because clearly it was a lie. When you get these incomplete sentences like that, quite often it signifies a lie. So she wants to promise him something because that sounds pretty emphatic, doesn't it? I promise you. Makes it sound like I'm genuine. You've got to believe me. I promise you. Problem is, when you've just angled your body away from them, and when you stop midway through the sentence, that says to me deception, lies. You're not going to give the real answer here.
I know. That was still me under the assumption that I think at one point you guys interviewed me, and when you guys showed me the picture of her, I believed the sexual stuff, but I didn't want to believe that he had done anything evil to her. I'm like, no, what if he did this stuff fine, but what if she's still missing out there? What if somebody took her? I still wanted to believe I believed him. I believed his whole story.
He has totally nailed her and she's panicking. You can hear even just the tone of her voice sounds panicked. She is now speaking faster, but even before she gets onto the really dumb things that she says, she can't finish her sentences. She's changing direction midway. So she starts saying one thing, obviously in her head she's like, well, that's not going to work. Tries another thing, still pauses, stops, that doesn't work. And then comes out with this classic statement that we've all heard a million times now, and every time I hear it, it still does my head in. When she's basically saying that the S stuff is not evil. I believed the S stuff, but I didn't believe he did anything evil. She's actually redirecting here also. She's redirecting away from the whole why did you get him a lawyer to basically, for once, she's pretending that she was concerned about the fact that Maddie was still missing. If you think about what she's saying here, she's essentially saying, let's not look at this stuff now, all this S stuff. Let's look at the fact that Maddie is still missing. So, this is the first time in the interview when she really has highlighted the fact that her daughter is missing. And why does she do that? Because she's been backed into a corner and she doesn't know how to get out of it. She doesn't want to actually admit to the fact that, yeah, she thought she should get him a lawyer because he got caught with the S stuff. Instead, she's turning it around and saying that basically she thought they were looking at him for Maddie's disappearance and that's why she was getting a lawyer for him. Don't look at the sexual stuff. That's totally irrelevant. She wanted the lawyer because she doesn't believe he's responsible for Maddie's disappearance. Let's forget the other stuff you told me. Let's focus in now on Maddie being missing. Because that might distract you for just a moment from the fact that I'm prioritising Stefan. It's just like, I believed him. I believed his whole story. She is trying her hardest to justify something that can't be justified. She is basically saying, you guys are wrong. He's not responsible for Maddie going missing. And really, the sexual stuff isn't evil, so let's not worry about that. And that's not what I got him the lawyer for. Because I don't think that's evil. I got him the lawyer, or I wanted to get him a lawyer, because I thought you were looking at him for Maddie's disappearance. There's a subtle difference here. She's doing her best to dodge around actually admitting to the fact that, yes, she has prioritised Stefan. She's trying to compartmentalise it and say, no, it's still important to me to find Maddie. And I think you guys are wasting time looking at Stefan. You should be looking for Maddie. People seem to think that Jen is really stupid. But when you start to break down the things she says, you can see she's actually an incredibly manipulative person. If this was not a detective who is used to doing this for his job, then maybe she could have actually convinced them that this is not what we're talking about, that she's not prioritising Stefan. But of course, they're trained with this sort of stuff, so they would have seen through what she was doing. this whole downplaying the sexual stuff, because she can't deny that now. And she also can't say that this is the reason she wanted to get him a lawyer, because that is essentially saying she was condoning it. So she's turning it around and saying that it's because she doesn't believe he took Maddie, and essentially a little bit of gaslighting here. While you guys are looking at him, blaming him for Maddie being missing, meanwhile, you're not looking for Maddie. It's subtle, but it's there. Unfortunately, unfortunately for her, in the scramble to try and convince them that the whole point of getting a lawyer was because of the abduction side of things, she came out with this stupid statement of the sexual stuff not being evil. Like I said, trying to downplay it, and boy did she screw up.
I was just like, I kept repeating that part. I'm just like, what if she did get dropped off? What if she got abducted? What if she's missing? But that was me assuming that you guys had the wrong guy. I wanted to think he was a good guy still, but clearly he's not. After everything you guys have told me and have shown me, I know he's the worst person on this face of the earth
know
right
that
now.
We know he's a piece of shit now.
You know.
But you didn't know that then.
I didn't.
Then you offered a guy who the police suspected of kidnapping, abducting, assisting the disappearance. Offered him a lawyer.
Jen's in full-on panic mode here. Her hands are suddenly flapping all over the place, until suddenly she clenches them. She's clearly stressed out here. And then as she finishes by putting on her legs, and she's doing that self-soothing thing of rubbing her legs. Basically, the detective has well and truly called her out. She screwed up by saying the sexual stuff isn't evil, and realises that that's not working for her. And she's gone into panic mode, and she's just basically throwing out words, essentially. And then she tries well, now I know because of everything you guys have told me. She kind of had no choice in that, because to turn around and still say, well, I would still go and get him a lawyer, when she's reading the room and she knows that she's just been called out on it, would be essentially admitting guilt. So again, she's going to say what she needs to say to cover her ass. And in that moment in time, to cover her ass, she has to say, oh, I know now that he lied to me and that he did all these things. Because were she to still continue to try and defend him after being called out over trying to get him a lawyer, she's screwed. And she knows that. She is far better at reading the room and adapting her narrative than Stefan is. I suspect this is probably, like with Stefan, a lifelong habit. But she is far more devious and manipulative than him, because she at least understands the sorts of answers she should be giving, even though they still don't really ring true.
And then we don't have to roundtable that. You went back to what you just said is the sex stuff is fine.
It's not fine.
Hold on. I know every relationship is different, and I know everybody's family is different. I won't ask, but going back on, has he expressed interest in, I'll use the word weird, I'm not going to shame anybody for what they like, different sexual pleasures, different sexual experiences, different kinks that involve things you weren't comfortable with?
The only thing he's ever expressed to me was like anal.
Okay.
He had an anal kink and like butts.
Okay.
But that was something I was never comfortable with or doing, and I let him know that. Like that's something.
That's fine. You guys slept in the same bed together. Stephen was a big portion of your life at one point. Stefan was a big portion of your life at one point. And this is not me coming at you as a person or a bad person, because shit happens in the past, and the past is the past. We can't change the past. Has he ever expressed to you any?
No.
Never. Has he ever made statements about made you feel different?
No.
Okay. When you guys slept in the same bed together, in the middle, did you ever wake up and find them cuddling? Did you ever wake up and find them closer than you thought they should be?
They would snuggle, yeah.
Okay.
But we all snuggle. I didn't think that was abnormal.
So,
What is wrong with this woman? He's asking her about inappropriate behaviours. And she actually says, they would snuggle. But I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. We all snuggle. You're talking about a child under the age of 13. We don't know how long this was going on for, so I don't know whether this was a child from 8 to 13 or what. But it is not normal. It is not acceptable. And to basically normalise it by saying, oh, we all do it, to me says she knows it's not normal and it's not acceptable. She's making an excuse there because she knows that it's not right. And even if for just one moment we believe that she thinks it's fine because they all did it, here's the thing. We know that Deb Stearns had called her out on, or called them out on the exact same thing. When they stayed at the Stearns' place, Maddie wasn't allowed to share a bed with Stefan and Jen. And Deb said, this can't happen, this is inappropriate. So she can try and act dumb, but we know that she knew better. So her saying, I thought it was okay, it's normal, we just all do it. It's just complete utter BS.
So if you guys are sleeping in the same bed and she's in the center, you've woken up and they're snuggling, they're under the same blanket, they're not under the same blanket?
No.
But just like...
She's got her own blanket, she's got her
spooning
own...
for what? What is snuggling to you? Because to me, snuggling, spooning. Big spoon, little spoon.
He would lay down like this and she would be right here in the nook.
Seriously? They've each got their own blanket? What a load of crock. Does she not realise that when they locked down the townhouse, they went through and took photos of everything? Meaning that they have photos of Jen's room, which show it was not separate blankets for everyone. They have photos of the room upstairs, which, okay, that one's tricky because the bedding's been removed, most of it. But what a load of crock. Well, she's got her own blanket. Is that the best you can come up with, Jen? And then so casually talking about Maddie sleeping tucked in his arm, basically. Like it's okay with her. Everything she's saying here is essentially saying She was completely fine with everything that was going on between Stefan and Maddie. She's trying to normalise everything.
Okay.
Um,
How do you guys sleep? You guys sleep clothed, unclothed? I sleep
Clothed.
Clothed.
Yeah.
Shirt, pants, pajama sets?
Yes.
Everybody?
I sleep in like my everyday clothes.
Okay.
On pajamas or baggy t-shirts and shorts.
Okay.
And Stefan would sleep with his t-shirt or boxers, sometimes with his pants on, but he didn't have pajamas.
Okay.
Okay, I think there was some leakage there. Again, I've listened to it multiple times, and she definitely says, after a pause, she's been asked what they all sleep in, and she comes out quite quickly with her sleeping in her everyday clothes, Maddie pyjamas or t-shirt and shorts or whatever. And then there's a pause before she talks about Stefan. And she says t-shirt or boxes. Sometimes with his pants on. Now, probably she meant to say t-shirt and boxes. But to me, that's a huge red flag for her to inadvertently say t-shirt or boxes. Especially when she follows it up with sometimes with his pants on. Is she actually slipping up here and suggesting that there were occasions when he was only wearing a t-shirt? Because that's the way it comes across. It sounds like there's a bit of leakage going on with what she said. You don't mistake or with and. She probably doesn't even realise that she said it. In fact, I'm pretty confident that she wouldn't have realised that she said it, because otherwise she would have done that blustering thing and tried to fix it. So the fact that she's done it and not even realised definitely makes me think there's guilty leakage here. He sleeps in t-shirt or he sleeps in boxers. Sometimes he has his pants on. If this woman does not end up being locked up, I will lose faith in the entire Florida justice system, that's for sure.
So they would snuggle, sometimes him being in his boxers. You would wake up and she'd be in the nook of his arm, essentially in a cuddling position. And you never found that weird.
No.
Okay? Again, you and I may find things different. Why? And I don't want you to look back on it, because now you know you victimized her for a long time. Right? Under your roof. With you home, most likely, because you said you're always home. You just got this job. You've been living off disability. I know the Kissimmee Police Department has showed you pictures. I know they've verbally explained to you some pictures. I can tell you that today, we are still downloading his Google Drives. We are still going through his social medias, his cloud-based servers, and everything else. And we can now piece back her victimization in your house under your care to 2020. I believe we've gone as far back as in when she... So when I ask, they've woken up cuddling, did you find things suspicious? Did you have an open relationship? Did he talk to you? Has he made inappropriate statements?
Okay, first of all, sorry. Seems like summer is never going to end here. So I've got the aircon back on again. So he's confronted her. Basically said, the victimisation has occurred in her house under her care. Her reaction is just a sigh. And he's doubling down on it all. didn't you find it weird? We get a reaction where she scrunches over. To me, that looks like an emotional reaction, but it's also a closing off reaction. This is too much for her to deal with right now. And you can see she's getting that pinched in brow. And this time you've got the mouth sort of hanging down. This is definite reaction from her. But what is the point of that he's making here? The point he's making here is that basically she has essentially allowed these things to happen under her roof. And she's claiming that she didn't know anything about it. He's essentially calling her out and saying that he thinks that she did know something about it. That this victimisation has been occurring at least since 2020. And that he finds it somewhat unbelievable, essentially, that she's not been aware of it. So you could read it as her reaction being to the fact that Maddie's been victimised for all this time. But we know she's not shown any reaction previously to any of this victimisation of her daughter. What's new here is him basically saying this all happened on your watch. He's essentially saying, we're holding you responsible for this too. You knew this was going on. We know you knew this was going on. And he's saying it as diplomatically as he can, because obviously there's, legal limitations to what a detective can actually say to someone when they're questioning them. You can't outright accuse them unless you have complete solid evidence. All he has to go on so far is what Jen has said. But I do believe that they will have been looking at the metadata from all the images that Stefan has and comparing that to the location of Jen's phone. But what I'm saying here is, to me, the thing that she is reacting to here is not about her daughter being victimised for all this time. It's a reaction to her being called out for essentially it happening under her nose and her essentially allowing it to happen. Because like I said, were it about Maddie being victimised, we would have seen a reaction earlier in the piece over what Stefan was doing, and we didn't see that. Now, we can confirm this as the interview goes on by having a look to see what things she's reacting to where. But it certainly seems that way to me.
It's almost like cheating, right? Like, have you ever been cheated on? Okay. Somebody can only cheat on somebody for so long until they fuck up, or until something comes out, or somebody says something, right? So we go back to 2020, we're looking at a minimum of 3.5 years. 3.5 years where I'm sure you guys are sexually active. Yes. So for 3.5 years under your care in your house, not only was he being sexually active with you, he had a sexual relationship. And I know it's an emotional thing, and I know it sucks to hear, but where I'm coming from is it seems like something that you can't hide forever. You guys live in a small space, close quarters, you sleep in the same bed, you guys all talk, you guys all share things, you're an observant person for the most part, I assume. Outside of taking medications and going to sleep, it seems very difficult. A lot of grown-ass adults can't hide an affair with somebody who doesn't live with them, let alone somebody who does live with them. So at a certain point, I do believe you became aware of what was going on.
No.
And when I say that, it doesn't mean you're in trouble. It doesn't change.
I know, but...
But I do believe that a reasonable person, and I consider you a reasonable person, right? Do you think you're a reasonable person?
Yes.
Would be aware that under her roof, sexual relation.
I had no...
Now, I didn't zoom in on her face while he was speaking for two reasons. First of all, the audio is completely out of sync in this spot, so it makes it harder to gauge what reaction matches what's been said. But also, there was quite a bit going on with her body language, not just the facial stuff. But what you see here with her face, she does this face swipe, and this is a classic Jen thing. She scrunches up her face, and she does this face swipe that's almost like, look at me, I'm crying. Pulls her hands away, but there's no tears. She's just gone red in the face, and she's a bit scrunched up. To me, this looks like a fake behaviour. This is something that she's probably used in the past and had success with. She also does this weird thing with her mouth where she kind of switches it off to one side. That's not a normal facial gesture. She's trying to convey something, but it's not working. So to me that says there is definitely an attempt here to deceive. And then you see her also starting to breathe quite heavily. The breathing has increased considerably. So that's what I could see going on with her face while he was confronting her. As for her body language, while all this is going on, he basically says to her, you guys were still active together while all this was going on, meaning that he was cheating on you. You get this sob from Jen, probably a fake one. But what you do see, which is hard to fake, she crosses her leg over and she starts doing this self-soothing thing where she's rubbing her leg with her hand. She's crossing her leg over because she wants to it's that closing off behaviour again. She's closing herself off from him. But at the same time, she's self-soothing. Basically, it's distressing to her to think of him cheating on her. That's what this reaction fits in with. And then he really starts to home in on her, talking about them living in a small space, and he gives her questions that she can't really refute. You're an observant person. She can't exactly say, oh no, I'm not an observant person. Well, she could, but she'd look pretty dumb saying so. So he's basically saying, you know, I don't believe that you wouldn't have noticed these things. And he doubles down on it by saying, a lot of people can't hide an affair even when they're not living with the person. And what does she start doing? We get the leg jiggle happening. This leg jiggle with Jen is a major giveaway. These are the times when she's anxious over being caught out over something. So he's confronted her and said, how can you not be aware of it going on? Because it's in your own home, it's in this small space. You're an observant person. Now, you don't hear her. You get these little no's here and there. Really quiet. But you never get her firing up over, of course I didn't know. Do you think I would be like that? You know, you would expect someone who have been confronted with these things to fire up and get angry. How dare you accuse me of these things? Jen doesn't. For the most part, she is mute. But you get the leg jiggle going on as soon as he talks about how most people can't hide an affair, and that's when they're not even living with the person. Doesn't look good for Jen. And he says, I do believe you became aware of what was going on. And she pulls out the really soft, no, in that little soft, pathetic voice. Again, there's no fighting this. There's no, how dare you accuse me. There's no anger. There's not even tears. Well, okay, fake tears at different points. But essentially, she's not responding the right way. And then he asks her if she's a reasonable person. You're a reasonable person, right? Do you think you're a reasonable person? And she's like, yeah, but really softly. Because she knows that by answering that, she's dobbing herself in and saying, because he's basically saying a reasonable person would be aware of these things. Wouldn't you call yourself a reasonable person? So he's basically got her in a corner here. And her response is that leg jiggle, the one that says she's suddenly super anxious because she's been caught out over something. We get the soft voice with a lot of body language going on. And then she starts to say, I think she was trying to say, I had no idea. I didn't catch the last part before she trailed off because it was definitely fading facts there. And he basically interrupts over the top of it, so it made it harder to hear. But it sounded like she was going to say, I had no idea. But she didn't finish the sentence. Again, what I was saying before. Our brains don't like to lie. She started trying to say, I had no idea. And the voice just gets softer and softer. She said it really quiet in the first place. But it got so soft that that last word was lost. And we didn't get the full sentence. This is reminiscent of a situation, a picture. There's chocolate sitting in the cupboard at home. The child gets into the chocolate's gone, and they've got chocolate all around their mouth. You can't deny that they ate chocolate. And the parent is confronting them and going, well, I know you did it. And they're backed into a corner, but they're still not going to admit to it. That's what it feels like here with Jen. Like a child that's been caught out doing something. They know they're caught, but they still don't want to admit to it.
The videos, the text messages, the images, they're all documented forever. This has been an ongoing thing. And at her age, I think she probably thought they were in a relationship. She probably thought they were in love because he showed her male attention, right? She just started liking boys, right? She just got a crush. Up until then, her crush at the same time, you guys are sleeping in the same bed together. You guys are all cohabitating. She's not sleeping in her room. But you felt the need to establish a rule that they couldn't sleep in the same room. But when you establish that rule, for 3 years, she's already been dating him, essentially.
He has read her so well here. He's now picked up on her reactions, and so he's using triggering language around the notion of Maddie having a relationship with Stefan. He's seen that she reacted to this notion of Stefan and Maddie, or Stefan cheating on her with Maddie. So now he's talking about Maddie probably thought they were in a relationship, they were in love. And then he said, you know, while you've had this rule for the past year, she's already been dating him. This is not the way you would speak to a parent if you believed that they didn't know what was going on with their child. He is putting it in her face in the most triggering language that he can. He's figured out what buttons he can press, and he's doing so to try and get a response from her. It's quite masterful, really. Her response, she crosses her legs again. She's doing that closing off behaviour, and she very, very visibly repositions her body sideways away from him. She's really not comfortable with this line of questioning. She doesn't like the thought of basically Stefan being in a relationship with Maddie when she was in a relationship with him. But you don't hear her having a burst of anger over him. You don't see her breaking down. She's basically trying to close herself off from the interviewer. But there's no anger here. She should be showing anger. These words, the way he's saying this, is to test her and see if she's going to show anger. And it doesn't happen.
Whether that's legal or not.
I had no idea.
So I truthfully believe, and this is my belief, I'm not speaking for other detectives, I'm not speaking for the sheriff's office, the state police department, or any other agency I've said. This is Kevin's belief. I believe that you became aware of their sexual relationship. I think at a certain point throughout this relationship, you became aware of it. And for whatever reason, your reasons are your reasons, whether it was discussed that it would stop, whether it was discussed how it would go, that you feel some sense of guilt. A lot of the news statements you've given kind of, again, my opinion only, I don't speak for anybody else, whether it's in this room or out of this room, bother me. It seems like some of your emotion, up until this room, I think some of the emotion in this room is sincere. I think a lot of it's because I'm being an asshole. I'm telling you things you don't want to hear that shouldn't be said out loud. But when you talk to the news, when you talk to deputies, it feels, based on my experience in this job, that it's not sincere. I feel like some of your sadness is not real sadness. I feel like when you gave the interview with Fox 35, it was not sincere. Looking at that video one time, I didn't feel like your cries were sincere. And I'm not saying that because you're a bad person. I feel like sometimes people struggle to show real emotion when they're aware of what the truth is. So it has to be fake.
Jen is so totally out of her depth with this detective. He has got her pinned completely. He has picked up on everything. So what is he saying to her? He's saying, this is what I think, not what anyone else thinks. This is my opinion. So he's making sure that she knows it's an opinion. So, legally there's no comeback from her. He's just sharing an opinion. But he says, this is what I think. I think you know. I think you knew. I think you feel guilty about it. Now, your child's missing. You've just discovered that on top of your child being missing, that your on-again, off-again partner has been doing stuff to your child for at least 4 years. That's pretty traumatic stuff to be dealing with, for starters. But to have someone then accuse you of knowing that this was going on, how are you going to react? If it was me, I would be jumping out of my chair. I'd be yelling, and you'd have to hold me back. You'd have to pull me off that detective. I would be livid. I'd be like, how dare you accuse me of something like this? How can you even think that? Not Jen. She is just sitting there like the complete utter spud that she is. No reaction whatsoever. And even when he lays it all out for her, sometimes people struggle to show real emotion when they're aware of what the truth is. So it has to be fake. Bam. Got you right there, Jen. He is 100% spot on there. And he's telling her what you're doing is fake. He's laid it all out and said, I don't believe you. I don't believe you, and I think your lack of emotion, your lack of appropriate emotions, is because you're aware of the truth. So you can't show genuine emotions. Heck, if someone accused me of something like that, I would be ropeable. I certainly wouldn't be just sitting there and listening and not reacting. Her reaction here tells us so much. Now, I've played this before in another video. What we're going to see here is with him confronting her over inappropriate emotions, lack of emotions, all that sort of stuff. What she's going to do is she's going to work herself up into an emotional state. Again, this is not a natural way of it occurring. This is her realizing he's saying here, he's essentially saying, show me some emotion. And she's like, crap, I've got to do this act now. But she can't just switch it on. Because, as he said, she knows the truth. So the emotion isn't there to be tapped into. So she has to work herself into this emotional state.
This is demise for the past, let's say, 5 years, right? But her going missing, her disappearance, if you have knowledge of how it happened, where it happened, an inclination, that emotion's not going to feel sincere because you're already aware of what happened.
I would.
It's almost becomes a lie at that point.
If I knew anything, I promise you, I would tell you. Like, I am willing to take a lie detector test, whatever the fuck you want, but I don't know anything. He's never mentioned anything. I've never seen any signs. I tried watching her like a hawk. I thought I was doing a good job, but I wasn't.
Okay, we've already addressed I tried watching her like a hawk, all that sort of stuff before. But you can see what she's doing here is she is trying to wind herself up. But even at the start of that, again, the brain doesn't want to actually lie. She starts saying, if I knew, and then she stops, her brain stops her. and she has to try again. She can't get it out in one sentence. If I knew anything, I promise you, I would tell you I'd be willing to take a lie detector test. Right, usually when you get that sort of objection, that generally means I do know a bunch of stuff, but I'm not telling you. What you would expect to hear is anger. How dare you accuse me of these things? What makes you think? You would want to challenge them. What makes you think that I could possibly sit back and allow this to happen? You don't turn around and come up with these, oh, if I knew anything, I promise you, I would tell you. Again, it's the child that's gotten into trouble and they're using everything in their arsenal to try and convince the parent that it wasn't really me. I promise. I'm willing to take a lie detector test. She is well and truly overdoing the I'm innocent, I don't know anything, as opposed to getting really angry and challenging what he's saying here, if that makes sense. So once again, her emotions aren't basically lining up with what we should be seeing here. Her language isn't lining up with what we should be seeing here. What we are seeing, however, like I said, is her starting to wind herself up into an emotional state. Because he's basically said, you haven't shown me the emotion that we expect.
I was oblivious to this every 4 years.
Minimum. That's just how far back the cloud goes. And I find it hard to believe for me that you were so worried about how many pills she took at night, but not where she slept or what relationship she was. His interest in her.
I thought we were all safe. I thought because in that he hadn't shown me anything so far, like everything seems fine. Like he seemed like he treated her like
he treats you. In his mind.
It's so fucking disgusting.
Honestly, I think I need to invest in some better headphones because I boosted that last bit that she said and I still can't figure out what she said other than the F-bomb. But he is still confronting her over the whole Stefan having a relationship with Maddie. And that's the thing that's getting her upset. It all comes down to Jen. He points out to her, you know, you're so concerned about her medications, but you're not concerned about what's going on with her and him. And then when she starts to say he treated her like, we probably get the biggest example from Jen of fading facts there. She can't say what he treated Maddie like. She says something that's so inaudible. And he says, like he treats you. Basically meaning, yeah, he treats her like they are in a relationship. And that's when you see the reaction from Jen. She cannot stand the thought of her not being number one.
So now he's in jail because of what we found on his phone, not because somebody came forward and reported that he was abused.
No, I know.
She's not old enough to consent. She's not old enough to have a thought process to even want anything that was happening to her. It's abuse. So he's in jail for that, but something caused what happened, right? We certainly murder, because we can call it a murder. She didn't die naturally. She didn't overdose. She didn't have a heart attack. We circled murder on Monday. Something had to cause that. He's been having unrestricted sexual activity for a long time. He's getting what he wants from her, probably from you, and who knows whoever else, right? So it's not like he woke up or went to bed Sunday and he was like, you know what? I'm done with this, but I'm gonna kill her. Something happened. People don't just wake up and like, you know what? They leave people, they break up with people, but usually things cause people to snap. Now what, you know what, and I'm in trouble, or I feel like I'm gonna, or him being out, we can go even worse. She's pregnant.
That's what questions last night led me to believe when we started talking about her period.
There should be some sign of rage there. She should be devastated at the thought that her daughter could have been pregnant to this guy. But she just sounds like she's just speaking quite rationally about it. Yeah, you know, that's what those questions last night led me to believe. It's like the moment the topic moves back to being more directly about Maddie, the emotion is switched off. Because now this is more focusing on Maddie than on Stefan.
I was told that her and her friend, and granted, I'm male, never had a period, but that somebody found it weird that they were no longer on the same cycle. Could be different because she's a teenage girl. Could be that she missed her period. Have you ever found a pregnancy test at home that wasn't yours?
I have 2 underneath the bathroom sink, but I haven't seen if they're still there or not.
Okay. But you haven't seen any used ones in the trash?
No.
Their relationship hasn't changed?
No.
Now, if you were listening to that part of the conversation without putting it in context, you knew nothing about this case, you would think that this conversation was with regards to a much, much older teen, someone who is perhaps an adult, who is active. Because he's asking her about missing pregnancy tests, about finding any in the rubbish. And she's so calm and so matter of fact. Yes, from what she's saying, there was a conversation the day before that got the idea into her head that maybe that's a possibility of Maddie being pregnant. She's so very calm about it. And maybe part of that calmness is because she's had time to process. But he has escalated it here to make it even more real by bringing in the possibility of her using a pregnancy test. It makes it something more solid, more real, something that is more than just a theoretical idea. And yet she's just so matter of fact. There is no emotional reaction here whatsoever. Like I said, even if she's had an emotional reaction previously at the thought of Maddie being pregnant, because he has escalated it, this should bring back the flood of tears. Because it's now more in your face. It's gone from just that theoretical what if kind of notion to the more practical, if this is the case, then she would have had to have used pregnancy tests perhaps. It's more solid, it's more tangible. It should trigger another reaction in Jen, if there was one, to start with. Okay, so I'm going to actually finish this video here, make it a little bit shorter than yesterday's video, because from this point, this is when we start getting into the psychic Jen phase, as I refer to it. Basically, when he asks her, what do you think happened? Where do you think he took her? All these questions. I want to know your theories now, Jen. And the things she's coming out with are far too close to the truth, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that is something that needs to be looked at altogether rather than start on it and then run out of time. So that will be tomorrow's video, looking at her psychic abilities and her ideas of where Maddie could be, what happened to Maddie, all that sort of stuff. You know, well, I think he choked her because otherwise, how could you do it without leaving a mess? That's where we're headed tomorrow. So, on that note, I know this is lengthy, going through multiple part 1, part 2, but I really, really feel that this is one of the most important interviews. So I do want to dig in, and where possible, I do want to still look at the body language, even though we can't match it up entirely to what's being said. We can at least get the gist. So I know it is quite lengthy and it is taking us a while. Hopefully you guys are being patient with me over that. So with that said, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button and please leave your comments below. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. I know that these days I do struggle to keep up with comments, and I'm going to sound like one of those people, but this is just a practicality. At the moment, while I am trying to keep up with comments, I am answering members' comments first. In the past, I've been a little bit frustrated when I've heard creators say that, but what I'm finding is that there are so many comments on my videos now, which is fantastic, and I am determined to get through everybody's comments and respond to everybody's comments, but obviously it takes a lot of time. Quite often when I sit down to respond to people's comments, I have a little 4-month-old chihuahua who wants my attention, and I might get 2 comments done and then I have to give him attention of some sort. So it is harder at the moment for me to keep up with comments. Hence the reason I just feel that it is fair to respond to members' comments first. But that said, I will do my best to get to everyone. So on that note, thanks for listening, and I will catch you in the next one.